Is it possible that just a plane crash could have collapsed these buildings, or would it have required the sort of prior positioning of other explosives in the building? What do you think?
Today, over 1,500 architects and engineers agree controlled demolition destroyed all three World Trade Center buildings on September 11, 2001.
Then there's Building 7, which was not hit by an airplane, yet it was destroyed in 8 seconds that same afternoon at 5:20 p.m. on September 11, 2001.
The following video clip is a 2007 interview of Richard Gage, founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, on a Fresno, California television station with a viewing audience of 300,000.
In 2007, there were over 700 architects and engineers in total agreement that controlled demolition destroyed all three World Trade Center buildings.
He's an architect experienced in steel structures. Now Richard Gage is touring the country with a controversial message about September 11th.
Richard Gage is here to show us why he's calling for a more thorough investigation into the collapse of the World Trade Center buildings.
I'm an architect of 20 years, a member of the American Institute of Architects, and I've been studying steel-framed, fireproof buildings for about that long.
You come with some science to you. What is the official reason for the collapse of the World Trade Center towers?
Well, we're told that the planes hit the buildings, and there was an explosion and a fire, and about an hour and a half later, in the case of the North Tower, the buildings collapsed due to structural weakening due to the fires. The problem is that we don't have large gradual deformations associated with collapses, and fires in high-rises have never brought down a steel frame high-rise building at all, ever. We have the evidence of the 10 key features of controlled demolition. In the case of Building 7, it collapses straight down into its own footprint at free fall speed in the first 100 feet. It's dropping, as you can see, symmetrically, smoothly, at free fall speed in the first 100 feet, 2.5 seconds. This is uncanny. There's 40,000 tons of structural steel designed to resist this collapse.
Is it, what, a 47-story building?
Yeah, it's just called Building 7, right a football field away from the Twin Towers.
Okay, so what we're showing is left what happened. In fact, right is a controlled where you are using, or the people who made this happen, used demolition.
Indeed, and it's a direct comparison. And you can see that, indeed, almost free fall speed, free fall acceleration through 40,000 tons of structural steel. That is uncanny. So we have 700 architects and engineers demanding a new investigation as a result of this evidence and the evidence in the World Trade Center that is very explosive. Almost every architect and engineer we show this information to agrees with us that these are controlled demolitions. If we can get them to look at the information, because obviously the implications of a controlled demolition are dark for our country, because that means somebody besides Al-Qaeda was involved, because these have to be easily three of the most highly secure buildings outside the Pentagon.
Now, if that was a controlled demolition, would there not be any evidence at the ground level of explosives?
What we find down there is pools of molten iron.
What does that mean?
Several tons. Exactly. What is that doing there? The first responders see it, the structural engineers see it. It's documented by FEMA, the melting of steel. Normal office fires is what's supposed to have brought these buildings down, along with jet plane impacts. But jet fuel and office fires don't produce molten iron or molten steel. It doesn't begin to melt until 3,000 degrees. But what we have is the fires only produce maybe 1,600 degrees. So what produced all that molten iron? Well, it has in it the chemical evidence of a special incendiary, which is thermite, a high-tech incendiary used to cut through steel like a hot knife through butter. Indeed, in all of the dust throughout lower Manhattan, we have a 4 to 6 inch thick layer of this dust, and throughout it we have evidence of tiny spheres, billions of them, several tons of previously molten iron. Well, how does that happen? If you have molten iron, the byproduct of thermite is molten iron, and it's dispersed throughout all of the stuff. Samples have been sent to physicist Stephen Jones, formerly of Brigham Young University, and they find in it not only these spheres, which others have found too, USGS, R.J. Lee, doing toxicological studies, These spheres have iron, aluminum, fluorine, manganese, very unusual elements associated only with thermite. And there's small chips of unignited thermite as well. This is very high-tech thermite, nanothermite. It's not found in a cave in Afghanistan. It's produced in very sophisticated Defense Department contracting laboratories. Well, what you have to ask is who had access to the buildings? Did Al-Qaeda have access to these highly secure buildings? Probably not. Did they have access to sophisticated nanothermite, where the particles are 1,000 times smaller than a human hair? Probably not. Somebody else has to be investigated, and that's why we have 700 architects and engineers demanding a real investigation. We don't have the whole theory as to how this happened, who did it, why. We just lay out the facts like we did last night in the Veterans Memorial Auditorium, and we demand a real investigation, and they'll find out who, why, how, etc. Okay. We're talking about several tons of nanothermite and ordinary thermite. One would have to have access through security. So the security company involved for the World Trade Center should be thoroughly investigated. In addition, one would have to have the cover of, say, an elevator modernization, which was, in fact, going on 9 months prior to 9/11, so that there were workers throughout the World Trade Center and that had access to the hoistway, which is immediately adjacent to the core columns and beams in the building.
You're not trying to freak out the country, but you can't help but feel a little freaked out by this.
Yeah, you're getting it.
There are ways each of you can make a solid contribution in building public support for a new 9/11 investigation. The most important task is for you to show this YouTube video or DVD to as many friends, key male contacts, and business associates as possible.
Today, over 1,500 architects and engineers agree with the solid scientific evidence that controlled demolition brought down the 3 towers. Please go to their website at ae911truth.org for more information and DVDs. This is not a conspiracy theory. There are, however, several rays of hope. Here are 2 more established groups that will likely provide breaking news about a new investigation of 9/11.
New York City Coalition for Accountability Now is working to obtain an investigation of Building 7's collapse, with subpoena power for an investigation to be conducted by the New York City Council.
The 9/11 Commission campaign, organized by former Senator Mike Gravel, will hold investigations with subpoena power in Alaska, Oregon, and Massachusetts. This can create a wedge in the presidential contest in 2012. Their website is 911cc.org. Please help generate massive support for a new 9/11 investigation. 6,000 soldiers killed, tens of thousands of soldiers maimed for life, trillions of dollars wasted. Isn't this enough? All based on lies generated from the total fabrication that airplanes brought down the World Trade Center buildings.
Remember, no airplane hit World Trade Center Building 7, yet it came down in true controlled demolition fashion at 5:20 p.m. the same day as the Twin Towers.
Please contact and support one of these organizations. Architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth.
They have provided the solid scientific proof that controlled demolition was involved. New York City Coalition for Accountability Now. This is an organization working to win approval for a 9/11 investigation by the New York City Council.
9/11 Commission Campaign. That's 911cc.org. This organization will hold 9/11 investigations in Alaska, Oregon, and Massachusetts. We urge you to form your own local group or attend and support any already established 9/11 Truth group in your area.
And most importantly, please consider a contribution to help Clearing Alliance production of this YouTube video. Your gift will help us reach hundreds of our fellow citizens. Make your checks payable to Clarion Alliance Fund, which is a nonprofit and is tax deductible. Please send to Box 158, Des Moines, Iowa 50302.
And then I witnessed both towers collapse, one first and then the second.
Is it possible that just a plane crash could have collapsed these buildings, or would it have required the sort of prior positioning of other explosives in the building? What do you think?